Hi there, Paula DeFougerol here to tell you about some of the key characters in my historical fiction series, The Chronicles of Iona, which tells the untold true story of the two men who in the 6th century founded the Monastery of Iona and the nascent Kingdom of Scotland, a Scottish warlord, Aidan McGabran, and an exiled Irish abbot, Columba or Colmcille. And today I'm going to talk about Columba, who for me was the man who started it all off. When I found him in the primary sources of the period, I'm thinking to myself, I need to write a series based on this man's life. He is by far the best attested in the sources for the early medieval period, having in fact his own biography written about him by a kinsman 100 years after his death. So we know an awful lot about him, whereas for many other people, they're sort of lost to the mists of time. And what's key about St. Columba is that he was so important and continues to remain so relevant that we're still talking about him today. In fact, devoting a year-long series of celebrations to commemorate the 1500th anniversary of his birth this very year. So we know that Columba was born in Garton in County Donegal in about 521 AD into the Federation of the Enail or the O'Neill. At this time, the Irish in Hibernia are exuberantly Christian. They write in their own form of runes called Om. Their priests, however, speak Latin. Their culture, they're poetic, they're rather pompous, and they exult in the fact that they were never conquered by Rome. And there are hundreds of petty kingdoms, all jockeying for power and falling in and out of alliances with each other in order to shore up power and control the resources for themselves. So we first meet Columba in my stories when he's 40 years old. He has survived the volcanic eruptions in the late 530s and in the 540s from Iceland, volcanic eruptions that plunged the whole Western Hemisphere into darkness for about 18 months, no sunlight, as well as the Great Plague of the 540s. And he's gone on to become one of the most privileged and powerful and learned men in his society. He's a diplomat, he's a mystic, he's a polyglot. He's also something called redovna, meaning that he could be king if he wanted to, but instead he chooses the church and he founds the monastery of Derry in about 546. So everything is going great for him, and then suddenly it isn't, because he does something very stupid. He commits some unnameable heinous act for which he is chucked out of Ireland. He's thrown out. And what's worse, he's exiled to Dalriada, which is a Scottish colony in Argyll on the west coast of Scotland, which at that time was the least safe place to be in one of the worst times to be alive. It's a backwater, it's a frontier zone, it's the Wild West. So we've got a guy who's powerful and compassionate and apparently an arrogant pain in the ass. And he goes from having everything to having absolutely nothing. And you think to yourself, and I thought this to myself, how does this person survive in such a dangerous new world? And what's more, he's got 12 companion monks who've come with him, 12 friends who love him so much that they're like, right, we'll go into exile with you. He's got to figure out how to protect and shelter them. He's got to figure out whether or not his God can forgive him and whether or not he can forgive himself. That's what really intrigued me about him. And you can read my books to find out how, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know, skip a bit, how he not only survives but thrives. He founds the Monastery of Iona, which becomes one of the greatest centers of civilization, learning, and culture in Dark Age Europe. Right, so that's it from me for right now. Thanks a lot. Happy reading. And if you want to know more, check out these websites below. Bye.